as we can be able to share with our friends. Okay, so today we are going to discuss about the next thing or the next topic for our cloud computing, that is about the security, cloud security, which is the most important feature or the factor for the success of the cloud, for the success of the organizations, for the success of the individuals, for the success of any customer. Because if this is not considered or this is loosely considered, then probably everybody can lose the trust on the cloud services, and resulting cloud services or the cloud models cannot flourish, cannot grow as they are expected to. The one and the most important reason is, if you notice that in our previous lectures, while we were discussing about the pros and cons and whatever the services available with the different service models and with the different deployment models, and when we discuss about last lecture for the different how to choose the cloud, while we were discussing about the some sort of a questions, that what questions and what point things we are supposed to consider when we are going to choose for the any cloud, means any cloud model, and how and when we are required to means map those requirements of the users or the client for the organizations with the available options or the features of the cloud model. Either it is the deployment model or either it is the service model, and then how and on what basis we can be able to means advise or choose or propose the right model of the cloud. So you remember that during that time, in each of the aspect, whenever we were discussing about any of the model, so we were discussing that what are the cons or what are the issues or what are the challenges with the cloud. So that was the one and the only means one which was the common uh, means concern in all of the models. That was the security, and the security is highly important, not only for the clouds but for any model. If security is not there, then it means that model cannot execute successfully, even though all the other features are working fine. But in case if suppose security is means questionable, no one can trust on that. The trust will be means broken, and then nobody will be means ready to adopt the services. This is how, and that is why the security is always a baseline, or this is the means pillar, foundation pillar for the success of our any other project. So we know and we are aware, and the cloud companies are aware as well. Cloud providers, they are aware as well. They are also providing the different sort of the security to their services, to their models, as they can be able to implement these things in a successful manner. But if this is the case, then why, while we were discussing about so many things, so at that time, why we were saying that the security is still the weakness, security is still the concern. What it means by the security is still a weakness, it means that means from the both side, from the organization or from the client side, from the individual side, who are the users and users, and from the service providers, they all, both sides, they are all are taking the security measures, but they are not up to the required limits. Still, there is a gap, and that because of that gap, there are means huge chances that anytime data can be misused, data can be compromised. And this is the only reason that when you notice that most of the time you are listening the news that today the means some of the sort of the giant companies like including the Facebook and the Twitters and the Yahoo and means very means huge means giant companies and governmental organizations, their data is leaked and their data is hacked and so on. So when we are saying that these things are happening, so it doesn't mean that at the back end there are no security mechanisms are there. There are, for sure, because security is the baseline. Security is, you can see the red line for the success of any project. So if there is no security, then that means project cannot be able to execute. But then if suppose what we think that there is no security mechanism for Twitter, what we think that there is no security mechanism for Facebook, what we think that there are no security mechanisms for Yahoo, no, there are. There are no security mechanisms for the Google, no, there are. There are no security mechanisms for the means Google Chrome, no, there are. But again, they compromised. History told us they compromise. If we Google it, we can see that compromise. Recently compromised and on and off they are compromised. So it means that the security is better, we can say, comparatively better. They are improving the security from both sides, but we cannot say that it is up to the benchmark. Now, the one and the most important point here, we need to understand that why it is not the benchmark. And why it is means there are the chances that security normally going to be compromised. The reason is because the security, when we talk about the cloud model, then in that perspective, the security is not the responsibility of any one party. The security is the mutual responsibility. Either it's an individual user, either it's organization, either it is the SMEs, whatever the models they are using. So the security responsibility lies on both of the shoulders. From that side and also from the service provider side. So that is another case that when we can say that sometime the major parts goes to the service provider and sometime we say that the major part goes to the client or customer or the organization or the individual person. This depends on the what deployment model or what service model they are using. That's what we discussed in our previous lecture. That is the most important point. But from this, we learn a lesson that yes, security is the responsibility of everyone, whoever the stakeholder for this application. So this is the baseline and the most important point we need to understand before we go ahead. So when the security or anything, when there are multiple stakeholders are going to involve, then always it is natural that it becomes challenging to manage it, to maintain it. This is the reason, that's what we mean that why it is challenging, why it is not up to the benchmark. Because it's very hard to manage all the stakeholders, all of them at the one page. That is the important point. That is the important concern. That is why you are always having the news that the Twitter is hacked and Facebook is hacked and Yahoo is hacked and Google Chrome is hacked and some of the giant companies, even operating systems, they got compromised and so on and so on. So you need to understand that why. Like suppose this is the means a very important point to understand that why, while they have very giant companies, they have means not the hundred and some of the companies, maybe they have thousands of the employees and then maybe the millions of the employees. Suppose we just think about the Google. But again, still these issues are there. So this is the baseline difference. This is the one most important point. Before we start, another important point as well. Another point as well, which is even more important than this one. We need to understand. Then only we will understand that why we understand that why security is important. But we need to understand it is hard to manage and maintain the security. The first point, that's what we just discussed now. The second important point is most of the people, they are thinking or their perceptions about the security is wrong. Say, for example, if we ask from anyone, what is the security or what's the security in the perspective of the cloud? Everybody can say, oh, security means that I can securely log in and I can put my data and that my data is safe there. Nobody can use. So most of the bodies, most of the people, they have a wrong conception. What do you mean by the wrong conception? What I mean from the wrong conception, because they are considering the security requirements. These are the security requirements, what they are expecting. They are considering those security requirements or those security expectations and framing them in a very small frame. But actually, the security is not this much. And few of the people they are considering that security, if suppose we are following the CIA model, I hope that a few of you, they may have the background about the security, so you know what's the CIA model. Otherwise, if you are not from the security, I can give you a quick view. So CIA model is actually C is stand for confidentiality, I is means stand for integrity, and A is means stand for the availability. So the people they feel that suppose okay our means confidentiality is maintained, our data integrity is maintained, no one is going to be harmed to our data or manipulating our data or means trying to do anything with the updating with the data or cannot bring any I mean sort of a change in the data, and data is available 24 hours while we're using the cloud. So it means the security is done. It's okay. Partially it's okay. But security is too much, not this much. Not only CIA, not only that our data is safe and that we are means able to. So CIA confidentiality maintained, okay, integrity maintained, okay, availability maintained, okay. These are the basic pillars where we can consider for security. And these basic pillars even they extended now and for the CIA. But again, even it's CIA, even if it's CIA, but still there are so many other things that we need to consider. Then security can be considered fully. What are those aspects? Before we start, I just try to give you a quick picture so you can understand. Like suppose if you are running a business, okay, your organization is a business organization. For example, we are considering a business organization and we consider ourselves as our Taylor University. And suppose the Taylor University is using the cloud services. Now, CIA is the one thing, but we discuss about that. Our data security and these all things are something. But in each organization, they have their own policies and procedures. Within their data, some of the data is highly confidential. Some of the data is means if we rank them, so we can rank them high, medium, and low. And some of data they can share. Now, the other thing, who is the user, end user? How they are using the services? Are they following the policies and procedures which are related to the security or not? Are those users who are using in this organization these some sort of the applications, are they have the right privileges or not? If suppose we give the wrong privileges to someone or extended privileges to someone which are not necessary for his or her operation, what will happen? For sure, this will bring the challenges, security challenges for us. I may give you the one example, which is means very closely related to this one. For example, you are the system administrator in one of the organization, or you are the manager in one of the organization. You have some sort of the different privileges. For example, if organization decided for any reason that you are no more with the organization, so what happened? What should be the policy procedure? The policy procedure is they have to revoke your all of the access first, and after that only they can inform you that you are no more with us. and they need to change the each and everything, and the means the passwords and everything, means etc etc etc. There is no guarantee. If suppose they are saying that you are no more with us, possibility is there that you got means tough with them, you got angry with them, and maybe means this is not necessary, but this is only a possibility, a case. Then maybe that employee turn back to the organization and try to means rethink that how I can means bring a loss for their data. See, this is what I mean, that the means strong privileges are extended privileges are extra privileges. So these all are the points which are the very important. Then we can divide the security into 3 to 4 different subclasses. This is only we are discussing in case of the cloud model. We have operational means security. That's what I just gave you the one of the example right now. We may have a deep considering all of the factors of the security. That's another block. We may have our business consideration, what policies we are applying, what procedures we are applying, what compliances from the government we are applying, how we are supposed to make sure for these things. That is the other block. Then we can say that could be the journal security terminologies, the journal security. That's what everybody and every person understand about that. That is another block. So they are the 4 blocks. They could be 5, 6, 7. It depends on situation, organization to organization. So you can see that security is not a single word. It's an umbrella term. So many factors under this, so many stakeholders under this. When we tune up all of them, then we can only be able to get or achieve the security. This is the reason that security is always a challenge. That is the reason in all of the models previously what we were discussing, we mentioned that security is a concern. The security was the one and the common concern in any of the model whenever we were discussing about the pros and the cons, whenever we were suggesting for anything. And the security is the one and the most important requirement from the individual or the client or the means customer side. Whenever whatever model we suggest them, they will be considering the security, expecting the good security. So this is why this is something which is truly important, and we need to understand in that perspective. We may not think that this is only the security, so it just means okay, it's done. We will try to discuss, as I try to let your brainstorming to give you a proper image about the security. We will try to discuss a couple of things, and because this is important, that's why you can see that we will be finishing this into 2 lectures. Half away we can go up to today, but again we can see that how these things are important. There are so many international standards, there are so many international organizations, there are so many international procedures. They are exist to make sure the security of the cloud. And there are so many things still in the process. Why there are so many things still in the process? Because the security is a continuous process. It's a never-ending process. We cannot say that we provide this, and now the security is there. Because we are growing on one side. When we are growing on one side, the other side, the challenges for the securities are also growing. What it means? It means like suppose now we are going for the 5G. Okay, our bandwidth speed is going to be means beyond our imaginations. So the security aspects are also going beyond our imaginations. So we need to meet the standards of the security with the same one. Now, what happened in the near future, few months before, the laboratory tested for devices, okay, which can have a capability to bring the data 36 GB per second. I repeat, 36 GB per second. What it means? We have the cell phones, but we are not able to use the 5G. Why not we are not able to use the 5G? Because our hardware does not have a support. Our hardware does not have a device or equipment or whatever you can see, the circuit, whatever you can see for your means easy understanding. So until and unless we don't have that hardware requirements, we will not be able to means go and switch to the 5G. So why we are going to the means new phone for the 5G supported? So that means that obtain that hardware which has a capability to receive the signals from the 5G. So if we go for the 60 and 70 and whatever it is, we need the hardware. So for any generation or for any bandwidth or for any means progress in the network or for any progress in the cloud, we need to we means in a sequence in order to have the hardware. Because if our hardware does not support, if suppose there is you are using a Wi-Fi and that is the 10 GB speed is available, but your hardware is only supporting up to the 2 GB. So even the 10 GB is access, but you cannot go beyond the 2 GB. So now recently the laboratory tested 36 GB capability for a wireless device it will be that can carry per second speed. That will be a revolution. Then you will see the 5G is nothing. And 6 months before in the Bell Laboratories, for the wired network, you will be amazed to know they tested that speed is 4030 terabyte per second. This is not now, I'm not means referring to the GB, but this is terabyte. You can understand what it means. So if suppose we will be going up to that level, then in the near future means in the time of the blink of the eye, we can get, we can achieve, we can copy, we can get all of the data from the machine or from the server. Data, if suppose data is compromised, within the blink of eye, we can get all data done, transferred to any of our desired location. That's one. A huge challenge to the security. What it mean? It means a clear message, a strong message. What I mean by the strong message? Right now, if it's at your cloud, if you're at a machine, if you're at your server, if something is going to be compromised, you have a time if you identify, okay, through using the IDS and the other systems, if you identify timely, then you can stop that attack. You have a time to stop it. You have a time to save your data to be stolen. You have a time to manage the things. But if suppose this will be the speed, and if you are compromised, and if suppose they require the seconds only, it means you will not have a time to stop that. It means that you need to keep your security at that level that there should not be any chance to means they get in and they compromise to your servers or your clouds. If they, then means everything is gone. So I hope you understand from this that why we are saying that security is means non-ending issue. It's a continuous issue. So with the growth in the technology, the challenges with the security are also increasing. What the example we just quoted right now. I hope you understand this thing, and now you have a broader perspective about the security. So many organizations, so many standards, they are following the procedures to implement the security. But still, there is a gap. So, anyhow, now we're just going to the next slide to see that what we are going to discuss right now, because this was important to give you as an overall big picture, a clear picture that you need to understand and why we are saying a cloud security and why the security, cloud security is important and why as a general security is important. These are the reasons, these are the facts, these are the realities. That's why the security is important. So now we will be discussing evaluating the cloud security, then the checklist for evaluating the cloud security, and then the metrics for the checklist. This is the complete goal of our this chapter. But we will be covering this chapter into the two lectures today and the next lecture because it's very important, truly important. I hope you realize it. So we will try to cover whatever the maximum we can cover. And then the rest of the aspect we will cover in the next class. So learning outcome, it will goes to the learning outcome 3, propose a cloud computing solution for an enterprise by identifying enterprise related issues. Why it goes to the 3? Because you remember, while you are going to propose a solution, you are supposed to consider so many factors. That's what we discussed yesterday. And the one and the most of the important factor was the security. Without that aspect, you cannot come up with the right solution or with the right proposal. That's why it is truly important. Now, upon completion of this topic, you should be able to do what? We will be preparing a checklist and evaluating cloud security. You will be able to know about the cloud security, about the checklist as a stakeholder. You can see that what kind of the things they are truly required and important for you, and define the metrics for the checklist. As a cloud expert, you can see, you can do, you can analyze the situation, you can make your own metrics, and you can go for your own reading as well. That's what we discussed in our previous lecture as well. So when we start, so you can see in the introduction, we're saying that evaluating the cloud security would benefit the and then organize set of the tools and the matrices are needed to evaluate. It means that you have to analyze, you have to evaluate, but how you will evaluate? You cannot evaluate without following some standards. You cannot evaluate without having the tools. You need the tools to evaluate the security. You need the tools to see the security levels at the cloud and at the organizational level as well. You need to require some benchmarking standards through which you can compare. Because when we are saying this thing is better, based on what? Based on some sort of the benchmark. We're saying this thing is better. So it means in our mind, we are comparing that thing with some existing benchmark. And if there is no benchmark, we cannot decide. We cannot decide that this thing is good or not. So in a way, we need to have this all of the evaluation. And in a way, these all are beneficial for the cloud models as well as for the clients or the customers or for any stakeholders. So evaluating the cloud security, I hope you understand the things. Now we are just starting and a further detail to give you a more clear picture. So you can see from here, normally I don't read the slides, but because here few things are important and they are straight away like questions and pinpointing the things. So that's why we highlight them and we are just trying to go for that one. So most of the user, cloud, whether private or public, have certain expectations. So now you remember what we were discussing, that the clients, they have the expectations about security, but while they have the expectations of the security, they actually don't know what is the actual or the real security for what they are looking for. Why? What's the reason? The reason is because they are not security experts. They are not aware about that. They are only considering at the abstract level for the security. And I hope that now this point is very clear to you. That's what we're discussing. So there are the two aspects to security controls in the cloud implementation. Number one is the presence of the control. Okay. And the second one is the effectiveness or the robustness of the control. presence of the control, and effectiveness and robustness of the control. As you know, that always the security is always linked or related with the trust level. What type of trust level you have, that is the most importantly for all of these stakeholders. For example, as you can see from the next paragraph, where they are explaining that, for example, the cloud may implement encrypted communication between the cloud and external user. But if we are evaluating the effectiveness of the encryption communication, we also need to verify that control is properly designed, implemented, and verified. As I mentioned, normally we don't read, but why we read that? So if we say that is supposed to cloud is using the encryption method, so just being a confirmation that they are using the encryption method is not enough. What do you mean by not enough? Because there are a lot of encryption methods, approaches, a lot of. Why there are a lot of the different encryption approaches are there? Because all of them, they are suitable and designed for some specific scenarios. Those encryption techniques what we are using in our conventional network, it's not suitable for the wireless network. Those we are using in a wireless network, they are not suitable for the ad hoc networks. Those we are using for the ad hoc networks, they are not suitable for the IoT networks. Those which are best for the IoT network, we cannot use in our other types of network, like in our Bluetooth network, what we call the Pico network. We cannot use them in NFC network. We cannot use them in ad hoc network. There are so many different types of network. I'm not going there not to confuse you, because I don't know that how much you have the background about that. So having encryption technique, applying encryption technique is not the answer of the question. We need to make sure that what technique is applied is that the right and best fit or not. If it is not, then what happened? What it means? It means that still there is a security gap there. That could be a compromise. I just give you a quick overview about that, about the encryption techniques. A very small insight so you can understand. In encryption techniques, we are using the symmetric and asymmetric approaches. In symmetric approaches, in any encryption technique, we are using the key format, secret key format. When we apply the encoding on our data, then we send our data from source to destination. Say, for example, you are using the cloud services. When you are sending your data, we apply encryption on it and we lock it with applying the key concept, and that key is secret. And then we are sending that information to the cloud. And when we are receiving the information from there, vice versa, we are doing, say, for example, just only the abstract level for your understanding, because we are referring to the encryption so you can understand about that. Now, in that, symmetric is approach where we are encrypting the data and applying and using the single key. Normally, we call that as a secret key as well. Asymmetric is approach. Another thing, asymmetric is approach where we are using two key concepts. We call them the primary key and we call the public key. Sorry, not the private key, but the private key. So we call the private key and we call the public key. They are different. Symmetric are different. Asymmetric are different. Few of them, they are suitable for few applications, and few of them, they are not suitable for few of the applications. This is a separate world of encryption and security. But we are just discussing that how you can be, whenever we are referring something, so you need to be knowing about its background, because your proper understanding is the most important part. So if having encryption, it doesn't mean that everything is done and good. No, but we need to be verified that is it the right or not. Going ahead, as we discussed, so in that particular way, as we discussed, that the mirroring the presence and our effectiveness of the security controls against the security requirements. So I hope now you understand what it means. Having it and about its effectiveness. That's what we were discussing. So on the basis of the sensitivity of data, the expected risk of a system. So we need to categorize first the data. What's the level of its sensitivity? What encryption technique, in case if suppose we are choosing an encryption technique. And normally we use the encryption technique for the communication while we are transferring the data from one point to the other point. Means while the data is being moved between the client and the cloud. So we need to know its effectiveness. We need to know that either the cloud server has the good security mechanism or not. What do you mean by the good security mechanism or not? We need to know that which techniques, which encryption if they are using, which encryption, which techniques they are applying. And then we need to see that what is the requirement of our client application. What type of client application? You remember just a couple of seconds or minutes ago, we discussed that there are the different encryption techniques. Few of them, they are suitable for A, few are suitable for B type of application. So in case if suppose we are suggesting to our client to you go for this one, and they are using some encryption technique which is not in line with their means mode of data or mode of application, then it will be a challenge. So that's what he means here, that we need to see the effectiveness of that. Maybe there's some service provider, they have the multiple ways. Normally they have. Normally they provide a customized solution based on the application. And these things are important to be considered. If we go blindly, then there will be a big trouble. For all of the other factors what we discussed, if suppose we are failed to consider any one of the factor, then probably the cloud solution may not lead to the successful solution. After some time, maybe it goes down. But in case if suppose security aspect, if we are missing this one, then quickly we will come down. And also not only we will come down, but our stakeholders may face a huge loss, a huge problem as well. Sometimes maybe it will be hard for them to survive again. So that's why it is a most important and most critical aspect we need to consider. From here you can see this figure, it can help you about, I can make a pointer, so it will be more easy for you to review about that. So from here you can see this is the requirements and the evaluation ongoing security remediation. So you can see from here, this is the legal and privacy. Before we go ahead, always remember that the policies and the procedures in the organizations where they are following these standard policies, they are highly important related to the security. For example, I just give you one example. Even in one of the organization, if employees are using the common room, the separate desk, the policy is that while you are leaving your desk, you have to lock down your machine or log out your machine. And someone is going, even suppose for the restroom, or someone is going just for out for a meeting, and leaving his machine on and logged in and different sessions are running. For example, this is only the one basic example to give you, and not following just a policy. At the back end, everything is security intact, everything intact, everything intact. What happens if suppose someone, when we are saying hackers, it doesn't mean that hackers are the red people. They are always from outside our organization. Probably someone is inside our organization, or probably someone is not a hacker, but someone is because of the professional jealousy and they want to bring a loss to someone. What happens if suppose they are going to misuse it? So this is sorry, this is the only example I gave you for your better understanding. But there are so many things we need to consider. And they can be controlled only with the proper effective policies. That's why even while you are a student, while you are going to the universities, so you have policies. How you can come, where you can sit, where you can go, where you can eat, how you can use your labs, when you can use your labs. So these policies sometimes the people they don't understand. They are just thinking that these are some restrictions why they are applying us. But these are not the restrictions, not on the employees, not on the any stakeholder. But these things are really important to manage and maintain the security. For example, someone is going in the lab and it kept the door open. What happens if suppose the lab is open and anyone is just going to be misuse the resources? Someone is logged in the morning and he forget in the lab is doing and he went out and door is open and someone else is coming and used on that one. What happened? How it will be traced? In home, it will be referred in home account, it will be going. Anyhow, this is the means policies and procedures are for your safety and for the safety of the systems. So you can see from here security requirements, procedures and operational means processes. These security requirements are the general requirement, which are the baseline requirements. This is the legal and the privacy means how the organization legally managing their resources and how they are managing the privacy of their employees. And this is the general. This is the procedure and operational process when they are doing something, using something at that level. So we need to understand the level differences. Security policies, standards, and guidelines. So now this means standards guidelines, standard procedures. That's why you notice that for each and everything, we always have generally standard organizations. So for the cloud as well. What do you mean by the international standard organization or international standards? That mean actually they are trying to implement those standards globally to make everything secure, maintain them, manage them, technical security controls. So most of the means layman approach, the most of the people they only consider the security only this part. They only consider the security, technical security controls. Fingerprints are there, passwords are there, cameras are there, different means technical policies are there, technical tools are there, technical IDs are there, firewalls are there, administration are there, filtering are there. But that is the only one element, one part. What about these four other? So you understand why what we were discussing at the start. That this is not a something which is small. We need to understand it in an appropriate way, in a proper way. So here is the cloud implementation. So we can see how these 5 points are. Here you can see continuing evaluation, change management. This is a continuous process. Always we need to do. And this is the periodic, means once in a week or once in a month, whatever the cycle for that. This will be a thorough level And this will be a lighter level, but we have to see. So then we can be make enable to bring the remedies for cloud implementation. So that we need to consider all of these things which are very important. So I hope you understand. The major focus is to give you a clear picture that actually what is the security. You need to open your eyes and broaden your thoughts. The security is not a single thing. It is something important and it has something, a vast scope which we need to consider and cover in all of the aspects that we discussed. Now, existing work on the cloud security guidance, our existing frameworks, our existing standards. That's what we were discussing. There are so many because this is something important. So many efforts from worldwide they already do. So you can see from here, Cloud Security Alliance, CSA. This is the international standard, CSA. The CSA has been very active in various efforts, including for what? Cloud control matrix and the consensus on the assessment and initiative questionnaires and support the security guidance for the critical areas and the guidance for the identity and access management. This is how means considering these points importantly, and all of these points are further if we elaborate is too much. Say for example, if we just go for the guidance for the identity and access management. You know, the access management itself, it's a huge area, huge field. Identifying identity, it's a huge area. This is actually the perspective that how the first phase before we go to give the authorization. So this is the first area, first point. What are the general standards for that? Then in this area, this level security guidance for the critical areas. What are the procedures? What are the guidelines provided by CSA? How we go for the different consensus and questionnaires. Okay, so you can see from here, providing the industry accepted ways to document what security control exists in IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS offering. What is the index CCM? The cloud control matrix designed to provide the fundamental security. So this is the part of fundamental security. So if you just see from here, Cloud Security Alliance, this is almost everything is at the fundamental level and only covering the one part, which is about the at the premises of the cloud. If you remember, I told you the security can be means divided into the different blocks. So this is only he's talking, this standard is only talking about the physical premises. Cloud control matters, questionnaires there, security guidance for the some of the critical areas, guidance and the identity and access management. So this is how, this is the one of the standard, international standard is available. There are so many. So we just go ahead. So you can see second one is the cloud audit. And there are so many. Don't you consider that whatever we do, three are discussing, they are the only one. There are so many. But we are just considering few of them to give you an understanding, to do your brainstorm. So the cloud audit. So now what is one? To give the cloud adopters and the operators tools to measure the compare the security of the cloud services. So we are doing the audit. We have the some different tools. We come to know that what services and how much they are secure. Another point. Then we have the European Network and Information Security Agency standard. We call NISA. That is the leading the security guidance efforts in the Europe, because that body belongs to the Europe. So they also produced different guidelines publications of the security adopting of the cloud computing. What those include: cloud computing information assurance framework. They propose a framework, a set of assurance criteria they mention, and what are the risks while we are going to adopt the cloud. Then the cloud computing benefits, risk recommendations, and these are the areas where they cover. And they also propose a security assessment and authorization for the US government for the cloud computing. So from here, you can see that this body is from Europe, previous body is from US, previous body is from some other means regions. This shows us highly importance of that. So we need to understand. And this is also giving us a message that we discussed at the start, that there are so many things we are applying in the security to manage the security. That's not something a single thing. Okay. So again, going ahead, this is the third, which is the Trusted Computing Group, TCG. Don't you think that everything is focusing only on the same? If we just go back, you can see from here, we are focusing on something different on premises. If you just come back, you can see they are focusing, few things are common, but few things are different. When we're coming here to the TCG, so you can see this is something different as well. Trusted computing. Using the existing standards, whatever we have, to define end-to-end security for the cloud computing in a framework. So they are providing a framework that can means serve as a baseline compliance and auditing. So few of them they are controlling through auditing, few of them they are using the tools, while how few of them they are doing at the premises, that how we can manage. Few of them they are controlling about security aspects while the data is on move, the data communication is going to be happening. These all efforts are relatively new, but still, why they are saying is still new, these things are continuous process. So they are trying to manage that all people have the common standards so we can manage and maintain the security of the cloud. So from here you can understand that these things are how much important for us. Now going ahead, when we are coming to the tools, there are so many tools, dozens of tools. We cannot name them here, but we just bring the few things for your understanding. Because you remember we said that we need to use the tools. So many tools are used, like suppose port scanning for open responding. We do the port scanning from where we are receiving a request, from where we are means receiving any data packets. Maybe some malicious thing is coming. That we can do with the help of the means the different tools. Then SNMP, this is known as the Simple Network Management Protocol. This helps us for scanning the network traffics. Then we use the different tools to find out the vulnerabilities, to find out the penetration testing, do the penetration testing and find out the so many means things. We do analysis of our network devices, how they are means performing, any malicious network devices there. We do the password compliance testing and cracking as well. So you can see means there are so many tools. These are only the few we just means mentioned here. So many tools are there which can help us. But again, they are helping, not consider that this is the complete security they are managing. They are only helping in one aspect. And there are so many different aspects. That's why we were discussing that it is a complete terminology, a complete umbrella. And that's why we can say that how, and then you can see in the upcoming slides as well. So you can see for the checklist evaluating this cloud security. The questions in these checklists are whatever the standard checklists are available. Okay, they are including from the several resources. Several resources. Few of them we just refer them right now. So you can see from here CSA, Cloud Control Matrix, ANISA, that's what we just discussed now. NIST, NIST is the means a basic cloud framework, what it was proposed at the initial level. And we referred it before as well. Even their service models and cloud models, they are in line with the business model. So there are different checklists that are available, prepared by mutual understanding at the international standards. So we need to consider them as well. Now, from here you can see overview of evaluation of the checklist. While we have a checklist, we need to see in different areas. So from here you can get a means more clear and closer picture that what we were discussing, that the security is not a single thing. So you can see from here that in this perspective, while we are having the evaluation checklist, so we are means dividing it into the 4 blocks. Foundation security means basic level of security. Business security, our business concentration. You remember we said about the legal security, about the business continuity, about the resource providing. Foundation security, about the policy and standards. Transparency, personal security, third party security, and so on. And when we go in an in-depth, the defense in depth, we can see our software assurance, network security, VM, PaaS, SaaS, and so on. And it's a big list. Then when we discuss about operational security, so you remember operational security while we were discussing about encryption, while we were transferring about the data. So the data centers, physical security, power and networking, assets management, operational practices, okay, incident management. And there are so many things. But I don't know that you have a background from the network. So I don't want to go in more depth. Maybe we need a series of the lectures to just to cover about that part. But because we have to be within the scope of this chapter, with our this module. So these are so many things we need to consider. They are highly important. So you can see from here that even the security in operational defense in depth means foundation and business rules, and they are only with respect to the checklist. But if we consider with respect to the security, then we can see that there are so many different blocks as well. Now he is trying to means discuss about the one by one for these things. So today we will be discussing about the foundation security and defense depth. We will be discussing maybe the next week. So foundation, you can see while we are coming here, a policy. As you remember, we just discussed a couple of minutes before. The policies are really important and they really matters. Security policies. You know, the hackers, the peoples who are trying to damage our systems, 70% of their success depend are linked with our the loose policies are the employees are the users who are not following the policies, and plus that in case if our employees are end users are not educated. What it mean by not educated? It doesn't mean that they are does not have any education. Maybe they have the PhDs. That's not an issue. Educated means they must be trained that how to use the system. Otherwise, they become an easy target for the hackers to bring them in the network, to give them the way in the network. And most of people they are doing like this. So you remember, I just give you again, if suppose we go in the background, then it will be a very huge series of the lectures for the network, because this is also somehow part of the network. So I just give you the one means example here for your this only understanding. That is, most of the cyber security attacks what they are happening around the world. The most common approach how hackers are approaching to us, to the individual or the organizations, they are approaching through the phishing emails. What do you mean by most of? 90%. Studies are suggesting 90% of the hackers attacks are through the email. Because the email is a common way, common application which is being used by everyone. Social network someone is using or not. WhatsApp someone may be not using. Someone may be using something else. But email is a basic thing which is being used by any organization or means any individuals as well. That is the most proper way for the hackers. Uh, this is the most common means what you can say the procedure through which they can approach and they get success. Mostly they get success. Why they get success now? Now you remember what I said that we need the educated. It means the trained user. So our users must be trained. If they are receiving an email, your insurance policy is attached. You are the lucky winner. I saw your profile. I really love you. You are looking very good. I need the friendship with you. This is my private email. Please send me the email. You got the job. Please send us the details. Blah 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 blah. So many type of these payments. Forwarding the links, forwarding the time. These all are the ways and the procedures they adopt to reach to the organizations that can be controlled in a two way. Number one is proper security policies. What do you mean by the policies? We should have the filtering of email. The spam filter should be there. Beside of the other so many things that we can consider and we can filter these type of emails and we can make them separate. Our users should be trained so they know and consider that which email they have to open and which they may not. Anyhow, so these all are the things which are the means matters in the foundation security. We need to understand. We need to follow the security policies, security standards, what are the mandatory and the guidelines, whatever are provided to us. So now you can see that what we were discussing about the security policies, how much it is important and how it is important. Not only how much it is important, but how it is important as well. So if suppose some of the employee is if suppose not following the procedure of policy, then how this is not only that he is bringing a loss to his machine, but someone when get in that particular machine, it means that that person has the access to the organization. So you can see now how these are the challenging things and how it is important. So the checklist for the foundations are like suppose standards and the guidelines. These checklists or guidelines, they are as per the standards, CSM, NIST, and whatever the procedures, standards, policies, what we discussed previously based on them. So these are the prepared questionnaires which we are supposed to consider. Has a security policy been clearly documented, approved, and represented to all of the concerned parties and representing management intent? These are the predefined, pre-written checklist. And all of these predefined, pre-written checklists, we try to make them in a green color so you can see exactly that this is the standard policies, standard checklist. Has the security policy had a legal privacy and other governance reviews? Has the security policy been augmented by security standards and or not? Suppose any organization had the security policy, but it's not as per the standard. It's only so-called security policy. So again, what happened? This would be in trouble. So are the security and privacy policies as well as the standards and guideline consistent with the industry standards or not? So you remember what we were discussing about encryption. Having encryption is not enough, but having the right encryption is best fit encryption is important. In the same way, having a policy is not enough, but the right policy as per the standard rules is important. Because otherwise, even if we have, that is a useless, and even we have, but again we are at the risk. So when you think of these policies should be at the client side and for all of these stakeholders, not only the client side, from the service provider as well, from the cloud as well, from model what we are going to choose from the stakeholder of our customers, client, end user, everyone has to follow these standards. If you are using the Dropbox, if you are using the Google Drive, you notice if you are using an email cloud services for them, we are going to just log in from a different machine, even from the different, from not different location, from the same location, you will receive an email. we means receive one new login. Is this you or someone else? What is that? That is the part of the policy and procedure. That in case we suppose one of the client is using always the same machine, okay, and the same browser and the same ID, same IP. Now, why he is choosing his changing his location? He can, not a problem. Why he is changing his machine or machine his browser? He cannot. But there is a quick check that maybe that person is not the same, someone else. So if the actual person is saying no, I'm not that, so what happened? They will have a time to stop that. That is also a part of the policy. It's the best example for you. Checklist for the transparency. So you can see, does the CSP provide the customers, okay, with a copy of the governing policies? Are the customers notified of the changes for the governing policies, standards, and guidelines? Does the CSP provide the customers with the visibility into the third-party compliance? Because so many, they're using the third-party tools and how they are intact with them. Everything is black and white or not, crystal clear or not. So does the CSP provide customers with the visibility into the penetration testing? So remember we said penetration testing. So if suppose you are using wireless network uh, security module, normally I used to teach that. So we do the penetration testing. So if suppose you are enrolled in that module, so you may be knowing about that currently or previously, and the different testing we are doing in secure software development courses as well. So you can see that means whatever the results we are having, so we may not, as per the standard, we may not hide, but we keep them on a table so we can, because until we don't know that where we are lacking, so we cannot go with the proper solution for that. Does the CSP provides the customers with the visibility into the internal and external audits? So whatever the audits, whatever the challenge we are receiving, we are having, so we need to share, we need to see, and then so many things. They are the checklist and very important. In the same way, personal security, we have a range of the checklists. Those checklists are the policies and procedures for hiring employees who will have access or control over the cloud company. This is the point at what we were discussing. Educated users, trained users. If we're hiring employees, are they really trained? Are they really know how to use the systems? This is the most important. If suppose we are lacking from this part, then we are in danger. If we're lacking from the policies, then we are in danger. Pre-employment checks for the personnel with privileged access. We need to have before hiring. We need to check. That's why most of the organizations, they have filtering, they have means feedback system, they have referral system, and so many things. They need to train the employees as well, and then those policies should be consistent across. So like that, so you can see, you can go through with these other questions, and because these are only simple questions from policies, but they are simple in a wording, but they are very important for managing the security. If we are able to follow this one, then only we are able to consider the security. But again, that is the only one aspect. Don't consider that is all everything if we are going in this way. So that's what you will be, we are discussing and you are learning about that. So if we go for the third party providers, when we are using the third party tools, third party applications, so always we need to manage and maintain the trust. We have the trust then only, and we need to update and keep means our client updated about that. Like suppose Dropbox, they're using so many third party. Google Drive, they're using their own applications and their third party applications. They have to follow the standards. They have to follow this checklist. After qualifying that, then they can allow or adopt that one. Are any services or the functions provided by a third party? We need to see if suppose this is the case, did they follow the standards or not? If any part of a cloud is subcontracted or the otherwise the outsource, does providing party comply with the same policy and standard? So we are taking a services from the service provider. Maybe some of the part partially they are using on contract. This is the case from home. This is the case. Are they following the same procedure and policies standards or not? So like what mean, we have to be careful about the third party options if suppose there are. We need to be make sure that everything is as per international standards. So going ahead, then we see about the business considerations. This is also very important to check about the rules and policies, where in which area the data is going to be stored. What data is how much level, that what we just discussed earlier. Okay, does the CSP means subconstant any services are the partners. So these are the checklists. You means just go through this one. We're going out of time. Otherwise, your attendance system will not allow us to go for the attendance. So we are almost done. So these are the questions, and I hope if we conclude that you are aware about that and how we can go for that. So then this is the last slide, checklist for the business continuity. So we can see that does the CSP have a formal process? Okay, and what are the services recovery point objectives, which are also known recovery point objectives are known as the RPOs, and what are their time, how they can do is information security integral to recovery and the restorations. So for each and everything for the business, so you can see. So this is for the business service model, and even we are supposed to finish in this slide. So you can see for the checklist models for the business uh, that we need to see that what are the SLAs, how they are following, and what are the controls and procedures are in place to manage the resources, and does the SLAs what they are saying they are following them or not. So we are stopping here, and the rest of the part we will continue in our next lecture. So you can see from here that what we are focusing about this. So we just try to discuss about these two things, and then we will be able to continue on the rest of the two things, and further more things will be in the next lecture. So thank you very much. If you have a question, please, you are welcome to ask your question. Meanwhile, I just quickly go and for your attendance because time is very close and then system will not allow us. So I just log in the system first before even going to stop the recording. So, okay, here we go. If you have a question, please let me know.